Hey there, rational shipper, fresh in the shower, and breaking tropes of sexy, wet lesbians everywhere. So, like a real person, I started having thoughts in the shower, so it's time for an impromptu vlog. One of the biggest defenses I've seen thrown up by anti-shippers is the idea that Destiel is just a bromance, not a romance. The thing is, you guys keep using that word. I do not think it means what you think it means. So we're going to discuss this first on an article level. Quote, a bromance is a close, emotionally intense, non-sexual bond between two men. It is an exceptionally tight, affectional, homosocial male bonding relationship, exceeding that of a usual friendship, and is distinguished by a particularly high level of emotional intimacy. The emergence of the concept since the beginning of the 21st century has been seen as reflecting a change in societal perception, interest in the theme with an increasing openness of Western society in the 21st century to reconsider gender, sexuality, and exclusivity constraints. Okay, great. That almost fits. Here's the thing, though, and boy, am I going to wince every time I have to use this phrase, but the evolution of this in the 21st century was actually a method of battling, wait for it, toxic masculinity. I may have to put a cringe counter for whenever I use that phrase. Now, for people like me that hate the phrase and were introduced to it late, let's discuss the original idea of what toxic masculinity was. It became a runaway term that people started using more as an insult to attack people with, but initially the concept was that men were not allowed certain privileges in friendships or social interactions that women were allowed, such as, the girls go over to their place and even straight women can sling themselves together on a bed giggling and checking their Twitter feed together. Nobody blinks an eye. A couple of guys do that and suddenly it's like, whoa, bro, no homo. Okay. We get it. We're kind of looking on the right page here. The thing is, that would also imply that Dean Winchester, for example, is going out of his way to break social norms. That he is an individual that is comfortable in slinging himself into a beanbag with Destiel and checking Facebook and, researching their cases together, nestled together. That is the bromance. That is the origin of the use of the term and the acceptance of the term. There is a broad difference between a man who is, by all means, God forgive me, a victim of toxic masculinity. Please don't bear that one against me, but in the concept of what is toxic masculinity, Dean Winchester, ironically, perfectly fits the bill. The beer-loving macho man, no chick flick moments, aggressor and dominant alpha male, etc. He is the last man to be open to the idea of the bromance. So the question is, what is this emotional bond that is developing with Destiel? Do you think at night he curls up completely comfortably in his, little memory foam mattress and they take selfies together? Or do you think we need to stop trying to use this term to dismiss a very bold romance? The moment Dean becomes comfortable enough to still non-sexually sling himself into a beanbag chair with Destiel in his lap, laughing and taking photographs, we might call it a bromance, but this is no bromance, guys. They are entirely different things, so stop using the word. And if that's the best defense you've got, you might need to re-review your terms. So, my soggy ass is off for now. A little bit of food for thought. It's not a bromance. It's a romance. The moment that a relationship ironically becomes indiscernible from that of two female besties, then you've got yourself a bromance. That's what the term is for. So try to stop using terms meant to, make other people comfortable on a perspective with themselves when it is a fact of the matter is the character himself is not comfortable. Ergo, it is not a bromance. Because you're ironically using a term designed to help people to marginalize people. Similarly, there's an interesting point of debate that when there's a bold romantic undertone but a lack of actual sexuality yet engaged, knowing that Castiel, except when he is human, is a largely asexual creature that has to learn sexuality rather than have a biology in sexuality, can one undermine the romance with an asexual individual? I'm going to give some people some mental gymnastics to work through right now. Because at best, ignoring Dean's bisexual foundation off of Dean Moriarty of On the Road and Castiel's relative place as Carlo, ignoring that and maintaining completely oblivious, because Dean Winchester is his own character at this point, even if he was purely, aggressively heterosexual despite the weird quirks along the way, is it impossible to have an asexual romance with an individual? Stop and think. Because do all ships and all romances have to end in ripping each other's pants off? There's the real question for you here. At what point can you qualify a romance engaging a non-sexual character? If they humanize Castiel, that might change, but until then, stop and think. Stop freaking out over the homo. Peace. A little bit of an addendum that I intend to attach to the other video. It occurred to me actually after this, I've openly spoken against the shipping of cockles as a romance. I just discussed the misuse of the term bromance. So when I eventually hook in my anti-cockles video to this, I want to give a perfect comparison of the difference between a bromance and a romance. A romance is the thick romantic affiliation going on in the show and the storytelling style, which is an entire classic era, an entire genre of history in human culture that we see reflecting through classic structure in Destiel. A bromance can be viewed through cockles. There is no romance here, guys. These are two men that are entirely comfortable expressing themselves on the deepest level of friendship possible, playing around without any reservations or restrictions. That is the difference between the bromance and the romance, and it is perfectly illustrated, and actually why we do need to stop, quote, shipping cockles. Cockles itself is highly destructive to the entire shipping movement, until you guys voice that you recognize it as a bromance and not a secret romance. It's pretty simple, actually. Compare the difference of the two dynamics. Cockles is Collins and Ackles readily playing around, sharing jokes, throwing each other around, dancing, faux flirting. And I do emphasize faux. There's a difference. They look at each other with deep admiration as deeply bonded friends. They have no secrets. They've got nothing to hide. Now, let's look at the dynamic of Destiel, and you tell me if they're that comfortable. Romance versus bromance. Peace.